If you've ever played Roblox before, you've probably wondered how Roblox games are made. After a bit of research, you discover Roblox Studio and start creating. After tinkering with it for a while, you find out that making a game is actually really difficult and go back to playing random Roblox games. This is exactly what I experienced just a few months ago, where I had an idea to randomly start making a Roblox game. But instead of giving up, I decided that I would try my best to actually create a playable and somewhat enjoyable game just so I can answer this one question. Is making a Roblox game really that difficult? There are a couple of important things that you need to consider when making a Roblox game. When I say a couple, I actually mean a lot, like a lot. As a new developer, I decided that I would only focus on these one at a time, and I determined the aspect that is by far the most important when developing a game is its theme. Before creating a Roblox game, you have to find a specific theme to base your game upon. Pretty much every single Roblox game has a specific and unique theme that separates it from others. For example, this game is an FPS, this game is about planting, this game is about fishing, and this game is for 5-year-olds. Since I have zero experience with scripting and game development, I tried to find a theme that would be unique and easy to create, but fun and entertaining at the same time. This is how I found a pretty underrated game called Plates of Fate. If you have never heard of it before, Plates of Fate is a game where you're given a small platform and you must survive random fast-paced events to become the last person standing. I played it for a while and actually enjoyed the game, even though the premise is extremely simple. Seriously though, this game is actually very addicting. You should go try it. For my first ever Roblox game, I felt that this theme was perfect, as it would hopefully be simple to code, and I could even add my own ideas very easily. However, I didn't really like how the events in this game are really fast-paced, because most of the time, I wouldn't even know what was going on. Therefore, I decided that I would make a game that was similar to Plates of Fate, while also taking inspiration from disaster games like Natural Disaster Survival. Now that we have a theme, it's finally time to start creating the game. The first thing I did in the creation process was adding water. To do this, I just simply changed the color of the existing base plate to blue. Obviously, the water doesn't do anything yet, but the water is supposed to kill the player when they fall off the map. Before we move on, I should probably explain the core mechanics of the game so you will understand what everything is for. As previously mentioned, the game will be similar to Plates of Fate, where players have to survive different events and become the last man standing. However, instead of being given one island each, everyone will be forced to survive these events on just 9 interconnected islands, which will hopefully set the stage for some interesting PvP. Some events will also be longer, acting more like disasters rather than game modifiers. Back to the creation process, the first actual part of the map that I created was the spawn platform. For this model, I wanted it to somewhat resemble the spawn area from Natural Disaster Survival, but with a more modern twist. So instead of a giant tower, I wanted the spawn to be a giant floating craft that was propelled by a large engine. The craft would also be covered with a transparent dome, protecting the players from falling into the water, while still allowing them to see the whole map. The final build was supposed to look like an advanced spacecraft, but all it really ended up looking like was a weird looking mushroom. Nevertheless, I still really like this build because it's really simple, and it allowed me to put other stuff at spawn. This was all I really accomplished during day 1, since I started this project at night, so I couldn't really get much done. The next day, I started working on the islands where the players would be teleported to once the game actually begins. For the model textures, I used classic Roblox studs instead of using normal textures because it's simple and it's also a really popular building theme that a ton of other well-known games use. For the other islands, I just copied the exact same thing until I had 9 islands separated by 100 stud gaps. Next, I started working on the bridges using the same stud textures and copied them until all islands were interconnected. I made sure that the bridges were made of individual parts, so when they are affected by an event or a disaster, they could break apart into pieces instead of collapsing as one whole bridge. After this, I quickly wrote a testing script that could destroy a random island just to make sure that island destruction would look good for future events.
Wait, hold on. Near the beginning of the video, you said,
Since I have zero experience with scripting and game development,
how were you able to program an island destruction script then?
originally I had zero scripting experience when I first got the idea to make a Roblox game. However, I also thought that going straight into making a Roblox game with basically no clue on what to do was probably a very, very bad idea. So a few days before beginning the creation process, I watched a tutorial series made by a Roblox developer named BrawlDev, which teaches the basics of Roblox scripting. I highly recommend it to anyone who wants to learn scripting in Roblox Studio in general, because his tutorials are genuinely so well made and easy to understand. If you want to check it out, I put a link to his channel in the description. Back to modeling, the next thing I did was put environmental details on the islands since they were looking mostly empty. Similar to the bridges, I made sure that each object consisted of smaller segments to make sure that they break apart when the object is destroyed. For this map, I made 4 main assets to use as environmental details: trees, bushes, rocks, and this cool looking chair. After making the assets, I copied and added them to all of the islands. Then, I made the water functional by creating a script that kills players when they touch the water. With that, the first map was finally finished, and I can finally start working on the game's core mechanics. So, I started working on the game's GUI, which will show players when the next event will happen and which event is currently taking place. On day 3, I started working on the script that controls the entire game loop. This script handles pretty much the entire game's core mechanics such as player teleportation, event selection, and map resetting. I made sure to do a lot of testing when writing the script, because if this particular script fails or causes an error, people in the server wouldn't even be able to play the game. To show you just how much work I did on this single script, here's a short montage of me playtesting and getting a lot of errors. After I finally fixed the player teleporting mechanism, I started working on the GUI for the map selection. Now, I didn't really want to make the event surprise the players, so I made this GUI display what event got selected. I even made a short rolling animation that would play before displaying the actual event that got picked. Now that I actually had an event selection system, I could script different events to be selected. However, I decided that I would only script 5 events for now, and work on more after I made sure that the event system actually functioned properly. I'll go over these 5 events as they played a crucial role in testing the core game loop. The first event I made is called Island Elimination, and as you can probably guess, this event just eliminates an island. This was the simplest event I worked on since I just had to take my testing script from earlier and modify it so that the island destruction would look better. The second event I created is called Alien Attack. In this event, a UFO appears above the center of the islands, firing lasers that kill players instantly. This event was actually pretty difficult to create because I had to make a model for the UFO and script the laser firing mechanism. The third event I made is called Speed Surge. In this event, every player's speed style will be randomized, meaning that you could walk either faster or slower based on your luck. This event was very simple to create since I just had to make a script that modifies the player's walk speed. The fourth event I made is called Bouncy Ball Barrage. This one is pretty random, but the event spawns a couple of red bouncy balls that do damage to the map as well as to players. This one was pretty simple as well, but I had to script the bouncy ball breaking mechanics. Lastly, the fifth event that I made is called Flipping Floors, and yes, this event just makes the floors flip upside down. This event was actually surprisingly hard for me to create since I didn't know how to apply rotations to models at the time. After I finished the 5 events, I made it possible for a player to actually win the game when they are the last person standing. Then I also made a sidebar GUI for players to see their wins and to modify their settings. I intentionally made the sidebar longer since I wanted to add more options and buttons to this area. After a few more bug fixes and final changes, I now had a functional and playable Roblox game. But then I realized, I actually haven't thought of a name for my game yet. After a bit of research, I decided on the name Islands of Entropy given the game's random nature. Since the game was pretty much working, I made the game public for a short period of time just so my friends and I could playtest the game together. Unfortunately, I forgot to record the playtesting session, but I did manage to get some valuable feedback from the playtesters. This will be very useful in the next chapter of our creation journey, which is... Now that we have arrived at the expansion chapter, I will not be explaining everything that I add to the game. There's just so much content that I added during this chapter that I don't have time to cover during this video. So from now on, I'll only be talking about the features or updates that were the most important. Additionally, if you see the day counter in the top left corner of the screen increase rapidly, that's probably because I left a lot of unimportant stuff out or because I don't really have much footage for the skipped days. So in order for you to track my progress more easily, I'll also add a gold display above the day counter so that you can see what I'm currently working on. Alright, now we can continue. During playtesting, many of the players had good suggestions to improve the game. I listed them all down and was left with a long list of ideas that I now had to implement. The first main concern of pretty much every player was that the game often goes on for too long. The main reason for this is that long events like Alien Attack were originally 1 whole minute long. Additionally, since the game is the last man standing, rounds will naturally continue on for an unreasonably long amount of time if everyone just survives. This is a problem because people in the lobby will get bored and potentially leave the game. So, I immediately got to work on fixing these issues. The first thing I worked on was modifying the duration for each event. This was really easy because I just had to go to the events module script which had all of the data for each event. Then I worked on the sudden death system. This was also really easy because I just made it so that island elimination is guaranteed to be selected after a number of rounds. I also added a rounds display in the top left so that players can keep track of how many events have passed. Last but most definitely not the least, I started working on the spectating system. And let me tell you, this system was absolute hell for me to make. And I don't even know how or why this system was so complicated. Essentially, every spectating system just changes this specific property on the camera so that it focuses on a different player when you spectate. But I encountered so many goddamn bugs while making this system that I'm not even gonna try to explain what this code does. Thankfully though, with a few more hours of trying random stuff and countless copilot prompts, I got it to work. I will probably rework this system in the future since it currently prevents me from making other camera-based features like cutscenes due to its absolutely horrendous code. But for now, if it works, it works. Now that I'm done with adding those features, we can cross these 3 items off our feedback list. The next thing I wanted to do was make new maps since I really wanted to take a break from scripting after that catastrophic attempt to make a spectating system. So I got to work making 2 new maps. The first new map I made is called Urban. For this map, I wanted it to resemble a city with a couple of buildings with the roads serving as the bridges. The next map I made is called Nexus. For this one, I also wanted to make a city with a couple of buildings except that the map would be futuristic and space themed. Since the players wanted a map that had a few hazards on it, I made the central island have a rotating bridge instead of a fixed one to make traveling between islands a bit more challenging. I also added a literal star at the center of the island, which would instantly kill players when it is touched. After making the 2 new maps, it was time to return to scripting in order to make the map selection system. A few bug fixes later, the new maps were now fully implemented and I could even easily make more in the future because of the new map system. So, we can now cross these 2 suggestions off of our list. The next 2 suggestions are similar, so we'll work on these at the same time. For these ideas, I wanted to make an event where everyone is given a sword so that you can fight players while other events are happening. So, I started working on the sword itself by making a model and scripting it so that it can damage other players. For the actual event, I just made a simple system which gives everyone a sword when the event is selected. This system was actually really helpful since I could now easily make new tool events. Now that these two suggestions are completed, we can now also cross them off the list. The next thing I did was just make a couple of small additions and changes to existing features. First, I added better animations to the UI, then made a couple of new maps, and made a few more events. The last 4 suggestions that I got were by far the most time consuming since I had to learn a lot of new Roblox Studio concepts in order to make them. These suggestions mostly revolved around shops, items, and cosmetics, so the first thing I worked on was making an in-game currency. I decided on coins for the currency itself since they are simple and I don't really want to think of a custom one for my game. Then I started making the first shop where players could purchase items and gears which would help them in battle. For this shop, I made an NPC named Randall who you could talk to in order to purchase useful equipment. And yes, this shop system was heavily inspired by Grow a Garden. After making the shop and a couple of items, I also wanted to make gears, which are basically items that could be reused. I also made an inventory system so that these gears could persist across play sessions. For the first 3 gears, I just added the speed, gravity, and fusion coil to Randall's shop. Now that the first shop is done, I immediately started creating the second shop, which would sell cosmetics instead of useful items. I also made a custom NPC for the shop named Melody, who you could interact with in order to purchase products. For the cosmetics, I wanted the players to be able to listen to intense music while in game, so I decided that this second shop would sell different crates that drop music discs when open. The music from these music discs are made by different amazing artists such as Derpcat, DOKURO, and many more. The full list of musicians are listed in the video's description if you want to check them out. After finishing the main shop system, I added the crates and discs to the inventory menu and made a crate opening animation. Then I made it so that you could actually play your music discs and listen to them while you're in-game. The last thing that the playtesters wanted me to add was monetization. And when I say playtesters, I actually mean me. Because I need money. So I worked on a couple of game passes, each giving a different amount of coins. But to prevent the game from becoming too pay to win, I made it so that some items required you to have a certain number of wins in order for you to buy them. With that, I've completed pretty much every single suggestion that the playtesters had. However, I still wanted to work on the game a little bit more just to make it more polished. So I worked on a couple of new events, created a new map, and just went back to the code to optimize some scripts. Then I finally made the game public once again, and got my friends to playtest the game one more time. Surprisingly, they actually somewhat enjoyed the game thanks to the new features and events. If you want to play the game for yourself, I put the game link in the comments. But we still have one more important thing left to answer. Now that we have come to the end of our creation journey, it's time for me to answer that question at the beginning of the video. So, is making a Roblox game really that difficult? The answer is yes. Yes, it 100% is. But it's not what you think. You might expect that scripting, 3D modeling, or animating is what makes Roblox game development hard. However, anyone can learn those skills if they just actually try hard enough and just not give up. In my opinion, the hardest part about making a Roblox game is consistency. The truth is, you will never be able to make a Roblox game as a new developer in just a short time frame. If you actually want to make progress with creating a game, then you need to be consistent and keep trying even if you face challenges along your own journey. This is what most aspiring developers fail to do because they get intimidated and give up on day one of making their own Roblox game. It's not just game development too. Consistency can also be applied to any other difficult task that you want to accomplish. No matter what your pace is, fast or slow, the only thing that really matters is that you keep going. If you're an aspiring developer yourself but don't know how to script or model, please do not be discouraged and give up. There are plenty of tutorials out there which teach the basics of Roblox Studio, and there are also a lot of communities you can join to ask for help. Who knows, maybe the next trending Roblox game will even be yours. All it really takes is consistency, perseverance, and for you to actually enjoy what you're doing. Or you can make a cash grab game, make millions of Robux with almost no effort, and be hated by the entire community.